My name is Sherry Smith. I'm a special education advocate. And today we're going to be talking about IEPs versus 504s. Okay, let's get started. One thing I usually start off with telling parents about the difference between 504s and IEPs is the difference between an IEP and a 504 is about 27 pages. Yeah, I know, that's a lot of paperwork. Doesn't necessarily have to be that IEPs are 27 pages long. I mean, they can be. They can even be longer. They're both basically contracts with the school or your local education authority, LEA. And obviously, the difference in my joke about 27 pages is that an IEP normally is a very detailed document, whereas a 504 typically requires only 1 to 4 pages. Let's get into it. First, I want to talk about the governing law. Where did they both come from? Well, the Individual Education Plan, or IEP, comes from the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act that was amended in 2004. And the 504 comes from the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. Obviously, the Section 504 of 1973 is a lot older, and it's kind of the grandfather. They're both overseen by the U.S. Department of Education. However, the IEP is overseen by the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitation. The 504, on the other hand, is overseen by the Office of Civil Rights, otherwise known as the OCR. The ages that the two cover are also different. The IEP covers you from 3 years old to the age of 21. A 504, on the other hand, covers you for your entire life, from birth to death. When we talk about eligibility for these two, we try to decide what a child is eligible for and which one will cover the child the best. There are a few things to consider for us. First, a student must qualify for an IEP. And those categories will be listed at the end of this video. It also requires specialized instruction. The disability has to affect the child's ability to access the curriculum in such a way that modifications or changes to the curriculum are required. With a 504, that would usually be talking about accommodations necessary in order for your child to access the school and its curriculum. Now, these could be environmental accommodations, such as a small group testing environment or a quiet room. Could also mean extended time on tests or a special cushion for the chair. While both the IEP and the 504 require a written plan signed by the team members, once begun, the 504 does not require quarterly progress updates. The IEP, on the other hand, does. The 504 does not necessarily list goals or objectives or placement or which person will be responsible for which goal or what percentage of time the child will be where. The IEP does. All right, let's talk about evaluation process. The initial evaluation process of an IEP requires standardized assessment tools along with various other evaluation methods such as observation, grades, etc. The 504 doesn't require an initial evaluation process necessarily. Rather, it accepts diagnosis or statements from doctors or parents or therapists. It also accepts a record of disability or regarded as having a disability. Next, let's talk about parent involvement. As far as parent involvement goes, the school should always try to involve parents. I mean, that's just basic. Although with a 504, the schools can create a plan without parent participation or permission. With an IEP, parents are required to be part of the IEP team, and they must sign a consent to the IEP document. Let's next talk about related services. A 504 doesn't provide for related services, while an IEP does provide for related services. Related services can be like speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, etc. Okay, next, college. The IEP does not protect the child in college or after the age of 21. The 504, however, protects students through the civil rights law, and especially if the college is federally funded. All right, let's talk about procedural safeguards. Under Section 504, school districts are required to develop and implement a system of procedural safeguards to address FAPE concerns, specifically, such as identification, evaluation, educational placement of students with disabilities. The procedural safeguards include notice, an opportunity for records reviewed by parents or guardians, an impartial due process hearing with an opportunity for participation by the student's parents or guardian and representation by counsel, and a review procedure. In an IEP, the notice of procedural safeguards for parents or guardians of students with disabilities is quite extensive. However, so the very first thing, and I think for me one of the most important things it talks about, is prior written notice. This says that the local district is required to provide you with prior written notice when the district proposes to initiate or change the identification, evaluation, educational placement, or the provision of FAPE. Also, when the district refuses to initiate or change the identification, evaluation, educational placement, or provision of FAPE. And finally, 1 year prior to your child reaching the age of majority, that's the age of 18, all educational rights transfer from parents or guardians to the student unless determined otherwise. The prior written notice must be provided 10 days prior to the proposed action refused or accepted, and must include a description of the action proposed or refused by the district and an explanation of why the district proposes or refuses to take action, and a description of any other options the district considered and the reasons why these options were rejected. Also needs a description of each evaluation procedure, the test, the record or the report the district used as a basis for the proposed or refused action, and a description of any other factors which are relevant to the district proposal or refusal. A statement that you have due process rights is also needed, and if the notice is not an initial referral for an evaluation, the means by which a copy of the procedural safeguards can be obtained. Also, you need sources for you, it needs to give you sources to contact to obtain assistance in understanding your due process rights. So the notice must be in a written language, understandable to the general public, and provided in the native language or other mode of communication used by you, for example, sign language. To see a full printout, I'm going to include on the bottom of this in my description, I'm going to include the full printout of the procedural safeguards for parents. Remember that 504s are more for accommodations, things that are necessary for the child to access the school, access the curriculum, but not necessarily modifications to the curriculum. So no changes to the curriculum, just some accommodations. And an IEP is usually when we need to make some changes to the curriculum in order for that child to have a free and appropriate public education. So with that in mind, I have some bonuses for you. But before we do that, don't forget to look down below and subscribe. This is a new channel. I will be doing these more frequently. I had to get up to speed on how it's all done and things like that. So now that that's going, please go ahead and subscribe. I promise I'll be getting some more information out to you soon. This is just the first of many. Now, for the bonuses. Also down below in my description, you're going to find a PDF to help you make these choices between an IEP and a 504. So go ahead and look for those. I set up a couple of links down there also. Have fun. As I find more things, I'll go ahead and keep putting bonuses on this and add some little things to it later. But for now, I'm Sherry Smith, and as always, I'm your advocate.